I hope everybody enjoyed their lunch. Our next presentation is from WiSA by Brett.
Thank you. So I heard earlier somebody with crutches talked about breaking his foot by dropping a big ass heavy PO on it. I can't say that's why I broke my foot, but that's a good line. I'm going to use it someday. All right. So for people that have not caught up with the company in the last 6 months, this will be a pretty informative presentation because we put out a lot of press since December, which followed on the release of our new technology in October and our licensing program in October, right? Point with the company, we just spent 4 years of a lot of cash developing it, but it's now in customer hands, is getting through customer evaluations, and that's what will start driving revenue later this year, right? So we're in that transition place, not trying to develop and prove we can do it, but going out and selling, designing in, getting approvals, going through the design cycle, manufacturing cycle to revenue, right? We have now at this point signed 5 licenses, which is actually, given that there's probably only 10 or 15 we'll ever really sign, is pretty quick for 5 or 6 months, right? And we'll talk about it a little bit later, but we have signed now licenses in both the TV division, the projector area, and set-top box, right? We're not disclosing the names until products are public, but we've now started beachhead signing in all 3 major categories. We got a strong IP position. I think we got 13, 14 issued, plus another 13 or 14 in the filing pending stage, so we're around 26 plus. And then besides wireless performance, what is unique to our approach on this software is that we are universal to the world. So not just between brands, which is historically what we've talked about, you know, an LG TV talking to Harman, which is owned by Samsung. So crossing religious, the DMZ and, talking to a Harman speaker. But we actually can work with, we're agnostic to the SoC that's in your TV. So it can be a MediaTek, it could be a Realtek. We're agnostic to the SoC in your set-top box. We're agnostic to the Wi-Fi chip, as long as it's a good chip. It's got to be a good chip. But we don't care what brand, right? So there are other people now that Wi-Fi chips are getting stronger that are trying to emulate what we've developed, but they're all with just their chip. They don't have the capability to performance to cross all SoCs, right? And then finally, one of the easier things for us is because we're out with this high performance wireless technology before, we do have a premium customer base, right? Now, a premium customer base is the audiophile market, and they don't really buy a lot of products every year. So the point of this is to move out of that, move into the high volume products of those brands, right? To be in the top of the industry from a performance perspective doesn't necessarily drive a lot of volume like being into TVs and set-top boxes and sound bars and the audio around them. So this new WiSA E will take our pricing from what was roughly $10 to $12 a module down to $3 to $6, depending on the performance in the speaker, and down to 0 plus royalties on activation in the TV or set-top box. Right? So fundamentally changing our price point and the market we can reach. Spatial audio, that's our business, right? So you hear a lot about it. It's being driven by Dolby, and their word is Atmos. So if you start seeing Atmos floating around on Netflix, that means they've encoded essentially a three-dimensional audio file for you to use. Whether you use it or not doesn't matter, but that is what spatial audio is being driven by, right? And to give you an example this is a good example. You don't really necessarily, but this dome, right? This dome gets created by the spatial part that has up-firing speakers. So the sound goes up and bounces down so you can hear it. So what that lets you do is, if you think about you're sitting, in row 50 in an NFL game, part of the fun of that is you got people cheering above you, to the left, to the right, behind you. Okay, that's what you get when you go into spatial audio, right? And so the more channels of audio, the harder it gets to wire. So there's really a push to go to wireless, right? So we personally love spatial audio because it does sound great, but also it requires more audio channels, and that's one of our strengths as a technology provider, right? So who's driving it? Dolby Atmos is clearly the leader, right? I think if you look on your Netflix, probably 80% of the content now says Dolby Atmos, right? And then Xperia, which is DTSX, they have little pockets of strength in Japan and Europe, but really it's Atmos, and who's going to come on fast, we believe, is Google's IAMF. I don't know how a brilliant company creates the worst acronym in the world for their spatial audio. We don't even know how to say it, but it does. So that they're working with YouTube, so even the YouTubers are going to start encoding audio when they create their content to be, that immersive, above you, behind you, in front of you, if you have the audio system to support it. Our role is not the recording, is not the encoding or decoding. Our role is to make sure wherever your source is, whether it's your phone, your TV, your set-top box, wherever that audio stream is coming into you, we get it from there to the WiSA speakers, right? We're the transport. And then we get it there so it's still aligned with all your other speakers in that room, and it's still synchronized with the video, and you don't hear any breaking up and cracks and pops. That's our role. Our secondary role, which is equally important, is to maintain the interoperability standard around the WiSA Association so that you, the consumer, knows this product works with that product, right? When you see an HDMI cable or a connector on the TV, you know that that TV is going to send out a signal for that connector to go into your AV receiver or your Xbox, whatever, in a certain way, and the Xbox knows how to handle it. Well, that's what WiSA interoperable standard does. Tells the transmitting device how to transmit, and tells the receiver how to receive. Right? That's our primary role, those two functions. As I mentioned, we've been at this for a while. There's a lot of audiophile companies that have used us. So we're launching this not only into them, but also their mass consumer brands like the Samsungs, the LGs, the Hisense, the Skyworths, right? So at CES, we really transformed where we were as a company publicly, right? So if you would have seen any of our presentations or demos, you would have seen a small transmitter transmitting the speakers, a classic home theater system. That's not it anymore, right? So what we showed at CES is the same software running on a phone, a Google phone, running on a Samsung tablet, running on two different types of set-top boxes, running on, one was a $20 one you can buy a media stick from On, which is Walmart's house brand, 3 TVs and 1 projector, right? So fundamentally, we're not even talking home theater anymore. We're talking about wherever you want to go and get your media and use it as a visual thing, the WiSA speakers can pick it up and play it, right? So we're not home theater, but the home is your theater now. Whether you're outside, whether you're in the bedroom, you can get that great audio anywhere easily with wireless speakers and WiSA. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, we have signed 5 licenses. We haven't really clarified a lot on where they go, partly because we don't pre-announce customers' products, partly because it is self-serving for me to let a few people that haven't signed worry about who has signed, right? So, but I can tell you we have signed companies in both the TV space, the set-top box space, and the projector space, and a sizable market share. So as we go forward this year, we have other contracts under review, under licenses under review. You can expect us to increase our share in that space. Right? Now, we showed 2 set-top boxes in CES, but there was a third in a private suite by another company who's one of the 5 licenses. So we only signed that license, I think, 2 weeks ago now, or 10 days ago, but we've been working with them since Q4, right? So they will be one of the earlier ones to come out. It's a pretty exciting product. I got great reviews from their customer base. So we think the business model we've created here is highly effective for the set-top box market. So as we announced in the press release, there's no charge to put our software on a TV or a set-top box right now. But when that software is activated to use WiSA speakers, I get my royalty, right? So from a design perspective, this is powerful, right? They can offer a feature to the consumer. It doesn't increase their BOM costs on a set-top box or a projector or a TV, but I get the money if the consumer's using it, right? And they don't take any hit on the BOM cost. So we think this platform is a great vehicle for penetrating the market. And based on the signing of the licenses already, we're pretty happy with the progress we've made in 5 months. So our strategy is to get the TV or the set-top box. We're not, although we demoed the cell phone, we demoed the tablet at CES, we're really focused on the core center of entertainment in the home first, and then we'll go to the secondary markets, right? From a primary revenue driving business, you will see us largely selling speakers modules, which are quite a bit reduced, and we're headed to the high volume market. And the point here is the software is so flexible, the TV guy or the soundbar guy or the projector guy or the set-top box guy, they can create whatever they want. They can have the up-firing speakers, 2 of them or 4 of them. They can use the speakers in the TV. They can use the speakers. There are designs actually being contemplated where the TVs are going to have up-firing speakers in them so that the front of the room is handled by the TV. So then you need wireless to go to the subwoofer. You need wireless to go to the rear speakers, both forward and up firing, right? But however you want to do it, we're currently shipping 4 channels and we'll be at 8 by the end of the year, right? So that's more than enough for the volume market. Right? All right, so what does it mean when we sign a license? And this is a new slide for the people that have heard the pitch. Okay. So it generally is a complicated process. Before anything gets signed, an engineering team at the account is going to go through and evaluate the technology, right? They're going to test latency. They're going to test wireless quality. They're going to test everything that matters to them for whatever they think they want to use it for. So as an investor, what you know is if I've signed a license, I've already gotten over the first round of technical evaluation at an account, because nobody signs a license without an evaluation period, right? What will not always be clear, but I think we were pretty clear on the last announcement, there's usually a royalty component in it, if not a royalty, an activation. So as I talked about with the prior company, if the consumer uses it, then you send me money, right? Will frequently be some engineering services to help them implement it. And that'll start impacting our revenue this year, right? And then we'll have probably pricing for our speaker modules that they will be buying, right, for their sound bars or their speakers, right? And then finally, once all that's through and we got the license side, then you still probably have a good section of time, which is usually running concurrently, but you go out and you talk to them about how it rolls into their product line, right? Are you rolling it across the whole product line? You're doing the top, the third, there's all those discussions. So we've gotten through those discussions with 5 accounts already. So I think we're off to a great start. Market size, I showed you earlier the number of TVs. There's a couple 100 million TVs every year. That alone is a sizable market. What's the audio attach rate? So if you talk to the dominant TV brands, somebody like a Samsung is running a 25% attach rate to their TVs. Some of the Chinese companies are 0 to 5%, right? But somewhere in the 20% range is what we think the average external audio is for TVs right now. So you can extrapolate and build your models, but we think if there's if you're running at 20% every TV, that there's going to be a module sold around each TV ultimately, on average. All right. So if we just wrap up, it's the same slide as the first slide. But we are at a big inflection point. We've got good traction on the licensing, strong IP, and we are the only developer looking to cover, to be Switzerland and be implementable on anybody's SoC, anybody's Wi-Fi, anybody's TV, right? And with that, I'm open for questions.
You talked about the ultimately the consumer end up paying directly for the license or the buyer, the person like.
Yeah, so either one's doable, right? But we're not trying to push the consumer paying for it right now, right? So in the case of an account that is going to do a non-WiSA interoperable, it's a closed system, then it's easy, because if we've shipped you X number of speakers, divide by 2, that's how many licenses you owe me for on the transmit side, right? But we are working on the methodology for the licensee to record when that's been triggered and have them send it back, the royalty. Ideally, we can base it on some way that we don't have to spend a lot of legal money auditing. If you go in and talk to the HDMI guys, it's all about the legal audit for collection of royalties, right? Yeah. Yes. It's just software. It's literally software that runs between the operating system and the Wi-Fi, right? So there could be costs, like if I charge you a royalty, right? But our perspective right now is, which we announced back in October, we announced the licensing deal, was everybody's so sensitive on cost on the transmit side and less sensitive on the audio side, right? Because the equation is there's called a 20% usage on the transmit side, so you don't want to spend $1 so that 20% of your customers can use the benefit of that dollar, right? So we're really trying to shift the economics to the customer that does go out and get the audio, right? But Tony Olstrom, who is president of WiSA Association, he came out of Clips. He's been in the audio business forever. He's so excited about this for the speaker guys, because I think we're going to have to change this slide, because actually his point is, and there's a deck that's going out to the speaker companies now so we can start getting their heads around it. The worst thing that the TV does for audio actually is not the center channel and the quality of the voice. The worst thing it does is it has no bass. So if you put if they have free WiSA E in there, and they can buy a WiSA, the consumer can buy that subwoofer, and that automatically opens up a good chunk of sound, right? So you're now not buying systems. You can incrementally add subwoofers, rear speakers, front speakers, up speakers, whatever speakers you want. The more the merrier for me, of course, right? But are you have a question, or are you telling me like get off stage? Uh-oh. Yeah, so I don't want to be offensive, but I just spent 10 years catering to the audiophile market. And there's no revenue up there. You can look me up on WiSA Finance, right? But from a technical perspective, our focus is that whatever room you're in, yeah, you can move around. So we think 4 channels is the sweet spot for consumer price usage. 8 channels is where we're going to get because of the Google and Atmos. And I don't think we're going to push it past that. What you can do, and we do have a client testing this now, you can do 2 transmitters, right? So if you're doing a sophisticated design and you really want 12 channels, okay, then you buy 2 transmitters and put it in your sound bar or your AV center, and then you can simultaneously send the front ones out through one and the rear ones through another, something like that. It's uncompressed, right? 48 or 96. We have 192 on the roadmap, but it's kind of iced. There is 3 customers right now that want it. They amount to no volume. And I can't divert the engineering resources from the 5 licenses we have right now. All right, so I can see maybe next spring in Europe, we might show 192, but again, it goes, the only people at 192 are music listeners paying $20,000, $50,000 for a pair of speakers, right? I can't live off of that. Someday we'll get there because we can do it, but I can't, you know, there's no economics for us. Anybody else? Oops. All right. Well, I'm around for a little bit if anybody else has questions.